once the bank has received all of the closing needs, most banks will need a business week's time, or at least allow for a business week's time to pass the entirety of the file to their counsel, their bank counsel, to do a full review for any compliancy issues. And I will say right now, of the hundreds of loans I've closed, transactions I've closed, or whatever, every single time, I believe, attorneys have come back with changes. Fran and Heather can probably echo that, but there's going to be something. It's another reason we encourage you get a final between buyer and seller. Doesn't matter if they sign off on it just yet, but get a final version of the APA sooner than later. Don't save that, till the end, or let it drag on and on. Get that into the bank, allow the attorneys to review that earlier in the closing process so they can make their comments and their changes. Because I'll tell you what, when those attorneys start reviewing things, they're going to pick up on things that the closer might have missed, or that wasn't initially provided, or that may have gone stale, or something being an I or not dotted, or a T not crossed. They're going to come back with something. So there's that 5-day window, and you can expect to hear within that 5-day window what things they need cleaned up. So once the attorneys, give the full 2 thumbs up that we're ready to close this loan, that's when the actual closing will happen. Now, want to talk for just 1 second, as I was mentioning the attorney review and all that stuff, and the anxiety of setting a closing date. I will tell you this right now, borrowers and sellers and everybody, as they get closer to the close, they're wondering why a bank will not set a closing date. Our banks are very careful about sticking their foots in their mouths and telling somebody that they're going to be able to close on, the 26th of the month, and it's the 20th, and there's still 3 things that are out there that need to be provided, and they're setting a closing date, or setting an expectation on a closing date, and sharing that with folks, and everybody's gearing up to do that. And then suddenly those 3 items don't come in, and we're not within that 5-day window of review. And suddenly the bank is saying, guess what? We can't close on the 26th. And everybody gets really pissed off. So I will tell you right now, when the question of when are we closing, or when is the closing date, is going unanswered, it's not that everybody is just ignoring you. It realistically means that something has not been provided, or something has not been fully cleared yet. And until that happens, the bank will not set a closing date. They're very careful, again, about, doing that. They're understanding that people are going to provide documents and do things and start to, prepare for some things. And if that they can't live up to that date, it's going to cause a little bit of havoc. So just be understanding and be patient towards this very end of this process, and getting that closing date. It really quickly becomes, or is all about, all of those materials being provided and cleared by the bank. So we're good to go. 2 thumbs up from the attorneys. A closing date will be set. Typically the seller does not need to do much on closing day. It's the borrower that's going to have to sign a nice lengthy contract, and then ultimately, when the borrower signs the documentation, the closing documentation, the bank will, release funds to whoever's the escrow agent, whether that's buyer's attorney, seller's attorney, or if the bank's attorneys are acting as escrow agent. They'll release funds. They'll get the signed documents, back from whomever handled the closing. If there was a mobile notary or something along those lines, they'll give a quick review, and then they will give the official word to the escrow agent. Okay, we are green lighted to go ahead and release those funds, and then the loan is officially closed. Sometimes, as this last point makes, And, again, about keeping your sellers patient. Depending on what time of day it is, if a wire cutoff has been missed, the seller may not be able to receive their funds until the next day, next business day, of course. So, if closings happen a little bit later in the day, or they take a while, or, if there was a hiccup, somebody didn't sign somewhere, they have to go back, correct something, redo something. Oftentimes we fully sign off on deals, but they don't actually fund until that very next morning. So just be wary of that as well. But that's the brunt of the very tail end of your closing process.